We are 1 week into the new NBA season, and most teams have only played about 3 or 4 games, so while nothing's certain, there is one thing that's become glaringly apparent if it wasn't already. The Chicago Bulls need to blow it up. I'm usually never one to let an extremely small sample size of games influence my opinion, but when it comes to the Bulls, who have already been trending in this direction for a while now, this incredibly shaky start to the season is only more of an indication of what they need to do. Let's talk about the first 3 games of the Bulls season and why things look so grim. They started off with a 20-point loss in their home opener to the Thunder, and while OKC aren't the play-in team they were last season, a 20-point deficit while shooting barely 40% from the field as a team and an abysmal 28.5% from 3, it's not the way you want to start your season. And more importantly than the fact that an inefficient 20 points from DeMar DeRozan was the Bulls' best performance, was the fact that after the game, the team held a players-only meeting. 1 game. It took 1 game for the players on the roster to go, okay, we need to talk about this bullshit. Obviously, it's hard to know exactly what grievances were being discussed, but apparently by the time head coach Billy Donovan walked into the locker room, players were already in a heated discussion, and he asked if they wanted him to leave, and they said yes. Donovan has emphasized that embracing conflict is important for this roster, and yeah, sure, but again, 1 game into the season? Zach LaVine later said he felt like they weren't playing with enough heart and that it was unacceptable, which is definitely a real thing teams struggle with over the course of a long 82-game season, but again, the first goddamn game, dog? It's not like the Bulls started off their season not being able to make shots. They did, but that's just not the most pressing issue. This is a matter of effort. If you can't count on a team to play hard in their home opener, when can you? Again, it's super understandable that a team like the current Bulls roster would struggle with intensity throughout the season when at best they're striving for a 500 record, but it's entirely too concerning for that to be such a present challenge so early on. Moving on from their first game, the Bulls then hosted the Raptors, who themselves are an extremely frustrating team and barely escaped with the win. After a slow and ugly first half, the Bulls were in the lead and managed to stave off a Toronto run before the end of the second quarter. In the second half, the Raptors quickly took the lead and started to pull away, extending it to as much as a 17-point margin midway through the fourth quarter. And then the last 20 seconds of regulation happened, and I've never been more bamboozled by what I've witnessed on a basketball court.
So they switch it, dangerous pass, and Barnes ripped it away from Caruso, knocked away, loose ball, Caruso, DeRozan, to the rim, got it! The king of the farm is back!
So it's a 3-point game with Toronto ahead. Pascal Siakam inbounds the ball to Scottie Barnes, which nearly gets intercepted by Alex Caruso, but that's okay. Scottie's got it until, never mind. The ball comes flying out of his hands. Caruso's on the ground, snags the ball, gets it to DeMar, who drives to the basket, gets fouled by Schroeder, makes the basket, and won. It's a crazy sequence with a careless slip-up by the Raptors, which gifts the Bulls a free chance to tie the game. Which is what they do, right? Right?
Now you have to defend. No timeouts for Toronto. Got it! Rips out! Loose ball! DeRozan! No! And the ball belongs to Toronto.
So DeRozan misses the free throw, but Alex Caruso manages to get around Siakam boxing out and is somehow able to perfectly tap the rebound right into DeMar's arms for the second chance, which he catches but is unable to lay in. They review for possible goaltending, but there isn't any. It's just a classic smoked layup. So now with barely 9 seconds remaining and still a 1-point deficit, the Bulls foul and send Siakam to the line where he converts both free throws. Now a 3-point game, the Bulls call a timeout to advance the ball and get the best chance at a game-tying shot, but instead, this is what happens.
And Kobe White into DeRozan. And he got fouled!
Oh my goodness.
With 3.5 seconds left, Caruso inbounds the ball across the width of the court to DeRozan, who secures it, takes a dribble, goes for the spin, does his signature pump fake, and gets Scottie Barnes to fly into him, creating a DeMar DeRozan sandwich with Scottie Barnes and Pascal Siakam as the bread, and wouldn't you guess it, that's going to be 2 more free throws. So again, a golden opportunity served up on a platter by the basketball gods. DeMar has a chance to win the game on free throws. Surely the professional basketball player can sink 2 in a row.
Till this full stretch of comebacks for the Bulls.
Ties the game with .7 left. They were done in the water, and DeRozan misses.
Woo, what is up with this game? Oh my goodness.
Overtime. There's not much else to say about the Bulls' second game. Both teams went back and forth in overtime, and it was a one-possession game throughout. Then, with 9 seconds remaining, Bulls down 2 and defending, Alex Caruso sneaks a steal from Siakam into the hands of LaVine. He drives to the basket and right under the rim, swings the ball out to Caruso into the corner, who knocks down the ridiculously clutch 3. Alex Caruso was the MVP of this game. Toronto ball, Siakam isn't able to get off a game-tying shot, and despite both teams trying their best to throw the game, the Bulls escape with the win. Now obviously, this is not one of those wins you get back on the team bus and start bragging about. You honestly hope most people just check the score and don't look into it too much. So even as they get their first win of the season, the Bulls are not setting a good standard for what's needed to execute a win late down the stretch of games. And in the Bulls' third game of the season, they faced the upstart Pistons in their home opener and were thoroughly outplayed for most of it. It almost doesn't even matter that they lost this game, cause, it happens sometimes, whatever. But the way in which the Bulls collapsed in the final minutes and were picked apart by a much younger team than them was probably the most telling sign so far that this team's time has come to an end. It was a 10-point game with about 2 minutes remaining, which is certainly an uphill battle for any team, even ones with way more experience like in this scenario, so I wouldn't have expected the Bulls to win outright, but my point is really that, just watch the last few possessions that mattered.
Body gives it up to Jalen Duren. Duren dumps it off to Cunningham. Nice screen with a little reverse.
I like the fact that all these guys are good and willing passers.
5 to shoot. Stewart in trouble. Got to get it up. Baseline. Oh! Somehow, some way. Stewart. LaVine, head of steam. Swiped by Ausar Thompson. Pistons are cooking. Thompson. Oh, mercy! Come on!
So the Bulls let Cade Cunningham jog into a reverse layup, then get hit by a demoralizingly tough bucket, then have a dumb turnover, then get scored on again. Not a great way to handle a late game stretch. Also, I didn't mention this yet, but Zach LaVine had 51 points on the night. 51 points with 0 assists. It's such an uninspiring offense, it's unreal. So when your season starts out with a bad overall team performance, gets followed up by a narrow win despite your best player's efforts to lose the game, and then follow that up with your second best player doing a Carmelo Anthony impression for the ages while getting dog walked by a Pistons team that won 17 games last season, you can't help but wonder, is it over? There's reports of Nikola Vucevic being pretty unhappy with his role on the team and the lack of touches he gets with the ball, going as far as to get so upset during their first game of the season that he ended up getting a technical foul for arguing, and in general there's some pretty strong notions that the players don't seem to really like playing with each other. Possibly so much so that it was the center of the heated conversations during their players-only meeting, so all of this is to say, from an outsider's perspective who truly, and I can't emphasize this enough, truly doesn't give a shit about the Bulls or what they do, and in all honesty, it's one less team for the Knicks to have to compete against, so works for me. But if I was to put myself in the shoes of someone who has a personal vested interest in this team, something big has to change. This team cannot keep going on like this. There is absolutely zero chance of the situation getting better as things are. Even if everyone on this team was playing at their best and Lonzo Ball was healthy, the Bulls are still significantly worse than the top teams in the Eastern Conference, so I really don't know what the front office is cooking. Either way, things are looking pretty scary in Chicago for Bulls fans right now, so for their sake, Jerry Reinsdorf, Mark Eversley, and Arturas Carney these 3 rapscallions, it's time to blow this place the f*** up. Well, that's all I got for this one. I want to try out something a little different, and I think this turned out decent. Let me know if going through actual games and footage is interesting to you and a format worth doing more of. Also, I tried to get this out on Halloween night, but I was having an awful time trying to download some of the highlights. Side note, internet in the South is trash. What the f***'s up with that? How do you people live? Regardless, sorry about not being able to get it out then, but either way, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll be back soon, but until then, take care.